Welcome everyone to the Hunter College MFA open house. This is an annual event that used to happen in person at the college in a theater on campus. And then during the pandemic, we switched it online, and then it stayed here just simply because that many more people can attend from anywhere and get a chance to learn more about the program. So the premise here is pretty simple. It's a chance for people who are thinking about applying and going to checking out MFA programs to learn a bit more about Hunter and ask us questions, and importantly, to ask the students questions. So we have with us tonight most of the students in the program in all three genres. And when after we do a little brief introduction here, we're going to break out into rooms for each of the genres. So you'll be in a room with the faculty for fiction or poetry or nonfiction, and the students who are currently in that cohort. And we, as the faculty, will be able to tell you some stuff. Mike, our program manager, is going to tell you some stuff here in the introduction section that applies to everybody. But really, it's a chance for you to ask questions and get answers, and hopefully the answers that you need from students about what it's actually like to be in the program. So I'll just do say a few overarching things, and then let Mike get into some of the particulars that'll be helpful to you in thinking about applying, and we'll take it from there. So Hunter is a small program. There are 12 students in each genre. So we admit 6 students a year, and it's a 2-year program. So you've got 12 students in each class, and you are with those students through each class you take in the course. So the first semester, you take a fiction writing, if you're in fiction, you take a workshop and you take craft class, same in nonfiction, same in poetry, and the same 12 students are in both of those classes. And then obviously 6 graduate and 6 new come in. But over the course of the time here, you get to know the people you're here with. And one of the things that and I think a lot of faculty would agree, know that it's important for you to take from grad school is readers who will be readers for you for the rest of your writing life and career. So the small program really allows that to happen in a way that I think is good. I would also say it's what, in a way, you call a studio program, which is to say that it's not a master's in English plus some creative writing courses. The creative writing courses are the core of it. In the first year, you take 2 lit classes, but in the second year, you get thesis hours to allow you to spend more of your time writing, which obviously, if you're going to be in New York City, you're going to have a lot of demands on your time. So we try to give you as much time within the confines of the program to do that writing. And that's when you work one-on-one with faculty members on a thesis. There are also opportunities in the second year for our graduate students to teach in the English department, and also a course that's based on our reading series, which is a great reading series, 5 readers a semester, amazing people from all 3 genres. And there's a course that gets taught around those authors, and then students get to meet those authors when they come. So that's another class that it's possible to teach in one second year here. And then the other just general thing I'll say is that we do have kind of great and I think fairly unique internship program, which is that it's voluntary. You're not obliged to do it, but we match individual students with individual writers, not faculty members, but people largely in New York, but writers that they're interested in, curious about, would like to meet, and you do a research internship with that person one-on-one in the second semester of your first year. So you can check all that out on the website. You can see the list. It's an amazing list of writers over the years that people have worked with. You can also see the list of the Visiting Writers series. So those are the things that kind of on the broad picture apply to everyone. And then I'm going to hand it over now to Mike Rizzo, who is our program manager, who is runs a lot of the actual programming to make things work here. And he's going to go over some of the questions that do apply to all of you that you may have about how we go through the application process. And once that's done, Mike will put into the chat a link for all of those who want to go to the poetry room, and a link for all those who want to go to the nonfiction room. If you want to talk to the fiction faculty and the fiction students, you just stay in this room that we're in now. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
Thank you, Adam. And hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. A little bit about my background with the Hunter MFA. I got my MFA in creative nonfiction in this program. It was a transformative experience for me. Writing that I'd been working on for years found a home, and empathetic readers, and all kinds of new insights that really transformed my work. Hunter community is very welcoming and really supports a broad range of voices. It's a really unique program. So my student life really wasn't too long ago. It's still very fresh in my mind. So I'll try to lay out what I can imagine would be useful to me when I was a perspective. So as Adam noted, Hunter's very small. The classes are small. 12 students per genre, meaning 6 students are admitted most years. So everyone's work gets very close attention. The course structure for every genre, fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, those structures are all the same. In the first year for fall and spring semesters, all MFAs take a workshop class and a craft class in their genre, and only in their genre. And you'll learn more about both of those courses, of course, in the genre-specific portion. And then first years also take a literature class in their first semester, in their first fall semester, and in the spring semester. And then in your second year, you'd be taking the workshop and craft courses, and also working directly with your thesis advisor in your fall and spring semester. So that structure is the same across genres. Fiction and creative nonfiction students have the opportunity to participate in the Hertog Fellowship Program, which Adam mentioned. Poets have the opportunity to participate in the Thomas Hunter Fellowship Program. Those are both wonderful programs that really allow students to really get into the vibrant literary scene and world of New York. Another thing we offer that's pretty unique is the Distinguished Writers Series. We bring 5 writers every semester across all the genres. They visit the campus, they give an evening reading, and they visit the MFA class, which is pretty neat. You have it's kind of a personal Q&A, so you really get to ask questions about their work that pertains to specific things in your own work. Now for the really fun stuff, the application deadline is February 1st, so it's coming up. By far the most important thing, probably obviously, is the writing sample. So definitely put your energy there. No GREs are required. So for the last 10 years, Hunter has offered tuition awards for fiction and poetry students equivalent to the amount of in-state tuition. So if you're out of state, you'd be responsible for roughly $3,400 per semester, which is a bargain if you've looked at any of the price tags at other schools in New York and elsewhere. We're actively working on matching that funding level in creative nonfiction. It's not there right now, but we hope to be there. So in creative nonfiction, as it stands now, tuition per semester for an in-state student, a New York resident, is roughly $4,200 per semester and about $7,700 if you're out of state per semester. To get in-state tuition, you need to be able to document New York State residency for 12 months, 12 continuous months before your first date of classes. And the MFA is not directly involved in determining who is a resident, who's not a resident. That's only determined by the residency determination office. So, and there are a lot of other details that are almost as fun as those on the website. So please give the website a thorough read. We've really spiffed it up. So hopefully it's as fun to dig into as for you as it was fun for us to recreate. So now let's move on to stuff that's a little more fun, which is talking to current students and faculty. So just to repeat, everyone interested in fiction will stay in this Zoom room. And I'm going to drop the poetry info and link in the chat first. So if you're interested in poetry, you can click on that link, or if you're on an iPad, you can use the, the meeting ID. If you're interested in creative nonfiction, there is the link for creative nonfiction. Yeah, so poetry and creative nonfiction, you can log off now and log on to those new links, and the fiction genre session will start in moments in this Zoom room. Thanks so much.
So, Mike, you're staying with us, right? Yeah. So, how do we know when? Oh, I guess everybody's just already here. Is that right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I can see everyone, all the attendees are, we've got a bunch of, looks like a good crowd.
Okay. Yeah. Good. All right. So hello again to the subset of you who are here to talk about fiction. I've said hello. I'm Adam Haslett, fiction faculty and director. You met Mike Rizzo. I want to introduce Ayana Mathis. Ayana, you want to give a wave? Ayana is one of the faculty members, and she and I are teaching this semester. Ayana's teaching workshop at the moment. I'm teaching the craft class. And as I said, this is mainly about you guys being able to, oh, and Roxana is here too. Okay, good. Sorry, Roxana, I saw your email late. Roxana Robinson, who teaches the lit class in the fall, is also here. And has been here and taught at Hunter for much longer than Ayana and I have. So maybe able to answer questions we can't. This is a forum for you, the people in the attendees who are here to visit Hunter, for you to ask questions. And the reason we ask the students to be here is because we want you to be able to ask them questions. And I've said it before, but I say it again, we encourage the students to be as totally honest about this stuff as they want to be and should be, because we're not trying to sell you a bill of goods. There are a lot of, you can visit a lot of places and a lot of websites, and a lot of things can tell you great things about their program, this, that, or the other. And so I'll just begin actually in that spirit by saying, I think I'm right in saying, Mike, that Sigrid Nunez is still on the website at the moment. Yeah. So if you're here, unfortunately, I'm sorry, if you're here and really want to study with Sigrid Nunez next year, that unfortunately won't happen. because Sigrid at the beginning of this fall decided to retire. So she's not going to be here next year. But if you look at our website at the faculty page, this is the spring, but Megha Majumdar is going to be here in the spring. And you just look back at the sort of history of who's taught at the program over the years, you'll get a sense of the sort of people that have taught here and who I'm confident will have to replace Sigrid. So that's one fact that you should all know in applying who you're going to be studying with. So, and then I'm just trying to think, I want to just elaborate for a moment and maybe ask Ayana too for a minute too, on this notion of the studio program idea, right? We're a small program within a large institution. So CUNY is huge. Hunter itself is very big. And the English department is quite large. If you apply and get in and come to Hunter, you'll be operating within a kind of small world within that larger world. And there are some bureaucratic challenges to that larger world, which are one of the downsides of a big place like CUNY. But our job, and it's a lot of Mike's job, but certainly our job as faculty too, is to try to give you the sense that you're actually part of a coherent group within that moves through the course over the 2 years, and to the extent possible really puts the emphasis on you composing new work and getting it discussed by your classmates and read and paid careful attention to by the faculty. So Ayana and I both went to the same program ourselves, so it's sort of that's kind of the model that we have worked with in the past. So maybe Ayana, do you want to just say something about your teaching workshop this semester? So do you want to just say something briefly about how you think about workshop, and I'll say something about craft class, and then we can just open it up.
Yes. Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for everyone for being here. And I should say this is my second year at Hunter, and it was funny because I did, I was in the open house last year and people had all these questions. I was like, I don't know, I just got here. So hopefully I can be a bit more helpful this year. But the other thing that I could say, which I'd noticed, and I'll speak specifically about workshop in a second, but I do think it's kind of remarkable how much the students do kind of form and cohere into a unit inside of this kind of larger university. It's really lovely, and you can sort of see it happening right away. Obviously, we're only in October, so what are we, 6 weeks-ish, I guess, into the semester. And I can already sort of see these bonds forming between first years and second years and between the first year students. And how sort of supportive and yet honest people are, at least in the classroom, and I suspect outside of it as well. So it's a really wonderful thing about a small program. And as Adam mentioned, he and I both from a different program, and our program was much larger. And so when I came, I was like, how does that work? Is it claustrophobic? But as it turns out, it isn't. So if people sort of had that fear that are thinking about it, as it turns out, it isn't claustrophobic at all. I think it's almost sort of the opposite happens, which is that people develop a really interesting ability to critique one another's work because they've begun to sort of understand its nuts and bolts and sort of what it's like and what it's about and what it wants to be. And I've found that to be really, I think that it's incredibly helpful for students, and it's actually quite helpful also for me too sometimes, watching people interact. In terms of workshops specifically, I suppose it's something of an old school model with a new school spirit. I ask a lot of my method in particular is that I tend to ask a lot of questions in workshop. I'm always extraordinarily cognizant of the idea that the work is your work, right? Like the work is the work of that student. And so my job and the job of the people in the room is not to sort of, dismantle it for parts to sell them off and make something new. The idea is sort of to, in a certain way, to understand what its mechanisms are on its terms, and then help it to be the best thing that it can be on its terms, which is actually kind of harder and more challenging and more interesting work, I think, than just kind of being like, well, let's sort of make a better version of it by breaking it apart and making it into something new. So I suppose, sort of end with the spirit of it is always respectful, constructive critique that is never destructive, which is kind of useless in any case, I think. That is as probing and as honest as we can make it. We spend the vast majority of the time, of course, looking at two students, go up for workshop in each week. We spend the vast majority of time looking at that. Sometimes I'll find that a couple of stories or excerpts that come up in a given week might have a similar set of challenges. And so then I might do kind of a very, very, very mini little, hey, let's talk about POV this week because this seems to be very relevant to these stories in different ways, or let's talk about narration or whatever it is. Once in a while, I'll bring something in for people to read. But essentially the focus really is on sort of like, how do we understand what this thing wants to be, and how do we make it the best version of itself?
Great, thank you. And to the subject of the group and the sociability, I just can't let pass that Ayana has a book out right now that came out in September, and the students brought her a large bouquet of flowers the week that the book came out. So I just feel that tells us something about Hunter as basically it's just a bed of roses. That Hunter is a constant bed of roses, and that's what you should take away from this entire expose. So I'm just going to very briefly talk about craft, and then really the point here is for questions from the attendees. Everybody does it differently. Last semester, Ayana taught a great course on the management of time in fiction. One of the fun things about teaching or talking with students when someone sort of with someone else is you get to hear them talking about what's going on in the other class. So they were constantly referring to books that I hadn't read and talking about things that were clearly very useful to them, but which I didn't know about. This semester, I'm teaching a class that focuses at least largely on sentences and sentence structure and syntax, and basically the relationship between music and meaning, sort of rhythm, prose rhythm and meaning in fiction. So these classes are each faculty member's kind of take on what added thing that, in a sense, that we are interested in, that we think we could be best at. There are plenty of things about craft that I probably wouldn't be useful or helpful on or not as interested in, but so whenever someone does one of these craft classes, we always just try to do something that is exciting to us and we're still curious about and wrestling with in some sense ourselves. And then, there's less writing for those classes because again, we want to give you time to be doing your fiction, but hopefully they expose you to a bunch of different voices, different authors, and they're all forms of permission of one kind or another to explore over the course of the time you're here. So, all right, it seems like maybe we somehow lost Mike, but oh, there he is. So, Mike, do you now see questions coming in? Or I should have said that earlier. If you're attending and you have questions, please throw them in the chat. And in the meantime, I guess I can, Mike, yeah, go ahead.
Here's a question that came in. What themes, topics, questions are you exploring in your writing? Which writers or works influence you? Maybe that question was for Ayana.
I think it might be for current students. It's if I'm looking at the same one, it's from someone named Allison Payne for current students. Maybe?
Yes, it might be for. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, you're right.
He doesn't want to know what I think. He wants to...
Mike, why don't you just read it one more time so the students know what it is, and then we'll call someone out.
Sure. Yes, Ayana is absolutely right. I wasn't reading carefully. For current students, what themes, topics, questions are you exploring in your writing? Which writers or works influence you?
Okay, we're gonna put Victoria on the spot, and she's gonna answer that question.
I knew you were going to call on me. I was trying to look down. Um, I'm working on a novel, so I'm exploring human suffering because it's not going very well. But I that's a really hard question. Um, family, um, like human relationships, vulnerability, lots of things. I guess for authors it's a little bit easier. I love like Elif Batuman, who comes up all the time, Marilyn Robinson, housekeeping. Um, yeah, I guess that's my brief answer to that good question. That was hard for me.
Well, and can you just say something about now that you're in the second year and how it's how it's different or not, whatever the actual answer is, to be doing it in a thesis as well, with a thesis class?
Yeah, well, I just had my meeting with my thesis advisor, so I can speak to that freshly. Um, I well, I will say this summer I was trying to write, it was not going well. I think I was cursed by someone or something, and I was so grateful that I was coming back to thesis because I was like, I have a person that I can ask all the, like, I'm so stumped and I know I just need like support right now. And I only have like one more year of like a support team. So I think it is like so helpful to have a thesis person that can like read like larger quantities of things and help you like unpack like what's the problem, what's not load bearing. And so I have like, I'm very grateful to have that at the phase I'm in with writing right now.
Thank you. So Mike, what else are people wondering?
Okay, general question. What were your main considerations when researching and selecting which programs to apply to?
Liz, do you want to answer that question?
Sure, I would love to. My main consideration was money, for sure, which I'm sure other people can relate to. I applied to other programs, I got into other programs, I did some financial calculations, and also there were other considerations, of course. I could kill two birds with one stone because I see another question in the chat about working full time. I was also interested in a program where I would be able to work because I would have to, and that the program would be understanding of that. And Hunter, so far, I'm a first year, has very much that's been the case. And of course, I'm a fiction student and I'm a New York State resident. I'm not paying anything. Also, having a small class size, I thought would be great. I really wanted to have as much interaction as possible with other people's writing and with the faculty. That was important. So a lot of things went into the hopper, and ultimately Hunter really came out on top, I will say.
And I just want to add, because I remember having a conversation with Liz about this at some point, in case there is any longer any doubt, despite the fact that this event is happening on Zoom, just to be clear, all the classes are in person. They're not hybrid. They're not, they're not on Zoom. All of our classes are conducted in person. So yeah, Mike, anything else?
Here's another one. For current students, did you begin the program with a project in mind? How has it changed since you began the program?
Jacob, you're a second year.
Sure. Did I begin the program with a project already in mind? No, not really. I basically submitted all of the short stories that I had to Hunter, which I think was like 2 or 3. So kind of by necessity, that wasn't going to be the end result. And by now, during my time at Hunter, I wrote a short story that now for my thesis, in the very early stages of developing into a novel, which is a really exciting opportunity to kind of have the thesis advising at the beginning stages of a novel, having never written one. I think that's we're kind of early on in the semester with that, but that I think that's going to be really helpful. So, but that said, other people have come. I think that there's a lot of different mindsets in that regard. I know some people have come in, I think, with almost a finished novel and they're basically revising it. Other people, like Victoria, alluded to the fact, I think she had started, she had a bunch of pages on a novel, but was very much in the middle. Not everyone works on novels. Some people just work on short stories. So from my standpoint, it seems like there's a pretty broad range in that regard. So you don't necessarily have to have some big project in mind, or even by the end, because your thesis doesn't necessarily have to be like 70 pages of one coherent thing. I think Adam usually describe it more as just like whatever you think is your best writing over the course of the program, right? So I think it could accommodate a number of different approaches.
Thank you. Yeah, what else is out there, Mike?
How would you describe the fiction track's approach to experimentation and tradition? Would most fiction writers currently enrolled describe themselves on one end of the spectrum or the other?
Aida, you're just looking like you want to answer that question.
I feel like I was giving off the opposite. I guess I came into the program, one of the things that I was considering was in finding a program was whether it was open to experimentation and whether that would be something that I could explore. I guess I feel like, especially in the first year in the craft class, we read some experimental short stories, which helped me feel more open to presenting experimental short stories in the workshop. I would say if that's something that you want to pursue, you're just going to have to pursue it and not really look to other people for the okay on that. If that's somewhere that you're comfortable and where you feel good about your writing, then it's just, that's what you should pursue. And I don't think you're going to get pushback on that.
Thank you.
So there are some other questions about genre writing, genre fiction. There's some questions about genre blending. So maybe that's a topic that could be tackled.
Yeah, well, let me say something general about that. I mean, this question is so different now than it was like 20 years ago, because I just think there's so many more people working interestingly, blending, to use that word the question used, blending genres. I think it's safe to say that if you are someone who's interested in writing straight romance or straight science fiction, I don't mean straight versus queer, but just direct, romance straight up, science fiction straight up, action adventure, whatever the genre might be, thriller, then this is probably not the program. We as the faculty don't work in those genres ourselves. But that said, there are a number of people, and certainly in recent years, working what you'd call speculative fiction, with imaginative, like non-realist, all these different sort of elements. So, which could be aspects of romance, could be aspects of science fiction in some way. But if we get a manuscript and it's a science fiction story, period, and isn't in some way engaging in the question of like, so what is the form here, and how is the writing related to the meaning of the piece and all that, then I think, like a lot of MFA programs, unless they advertise and say we have a faculty and a track that is about this genre, it's probably, you'd want to look for something more particular if that's the genre you're interested in. Yeah.
So there's several questions about the student experience of working and being in the MFA, specifically working full time, but probably, maybe a few people could take a crack at this.
Sure. Mercedes, you want to talk about that?
Hi, yes. I'm a second year and it wasn't my plan to work full time and have an MFA, but it just ended up being that I didn't want to quit my job and I'm where I want to be, and I wanted to see how the first semester went. I'm now in year 2, so I survived, but it's definitely doable. You just need really strong time management skills, but it's doable.
And actually, I know she's got some internet connection, so she may not be. You can't see her, but Jane, I think, is on the line. And do you want to talk a little bit about? She's the first year, but the kind of full time. We were talking about it yesterday. Full time and then part time, and sort of the back and forth. The way you thought about that.
Yeah. So I am currently not working, but I will have to work very imminently. I did decide to take a part-time job. So that's what I'll be doing. I did think about, doing a full-time job, but I would say that if you can afford it, whether it's reducing your hours or taking some time off during the bulk of the semester, and then maybe, furiously making up for it in our months off. That's sort of just how I wanted to start off doing it. So yeah, I've chosen to do part-time work, even if, it's less money, but that's okay.
Yeah, and there is, I think this points up one of the things that Ayana and I talk to students about when they're considering coming, which is we're in New York City. It's an expensive place and it's a demanding place, and there's a tax on your energy and your finances to be able to be here. And that is definitely something to consider. I think there are a lot of advantages, obviously, to it. One of the things I didn't mention in the overall group, which I should have, is that we started in recent years to have a publisher or editor come each semester to talk to students about, just to sort of demystify and inform people about the professional publishing world. And that's just something that's pretty easy for us to do in New York because a lot of them are already here. So there are obviously advantages, and there are advantages in all the other bazillion literary things that are going on in the city. But it's a very real concern, and that's why we try to make it as inexpensive as we can. But it's something to be considered. Yeah, Mike.
And also, it occurred to me to say, in case it's not obvious, is that our classes are in the evening, so there is time for you to be able to do that. Like, your workshop starts at 5:30. Most of the classes start at 5:30, or they start at, like, there's one that starts at, is it 7:30 or 7:35 or whatever. Anyway, the point is they're in the evening, so there is time for your days to be spent in whatever way you need to spend them.
Yeah, thank you. That's I should have said that. And also, just hopping on that, is the readings take place after the class. So the readings take place at 7:30. So, obviously a lot of jobs these days aren't necessarily 9 to 5, but the program is designed so that you could be working full time while doing it. So Mike.
Okay. So I suppose this is for second years, as you near the end of the MFA program, what kinds of paths are you considering for after the MFA while you continue to write?
Well, Silas, you know that I'm going to ask you because you haven't answered a question yet. So,
Why? Yeah, well, I think it's pertinent to the last question. I think after the MFA, I feel like I'm always in New York looking for a way to work as little as possible, but make as much money as I need to live so I can spend as much time writing as I need to, which is my plan for after the MFA. frankly. I mean, I like hope to leave with a project that I'm working on specifically, and I think I will, but in general, that's I freelance for a living, so it doesn't change a bunch whether I'm in or out of school, but that's my economical answer, if that makes sense.
Any other second year want to jump in about that? Someone have?
I could just I would love to keep on adjuncting, but I don't. Yeah, so maybe most people here have looked into the economics of adjuncting, but I think it's difficult to just plunge right from the MFA into a career of only adjuncting, right? That would be quite difficult. It would be quite difficult to make enough money based and get enough classes. So it's something that I believe I want to pursue, but probably alongside other ways of also making money, alongside finishing up or continuing my writing.
Well, actually, Jacob talking reminds me that there are, in addition to the teaching positions, there are some fairly limited, but there are some opportunities to get employment at Hunter while you're a student. So Jacob works in the English department office. Annis, one of our other second years who is in here tonight, works with Mike as a work study student. So there are some other avenues to actually be employed via Hunter. I don't want to say like that's not like by any means a promise that can happen, but that it does happen. So yeah, Mike.
Okay, how much time are students typically expected to devote to coursework outside of classes?
Ray, how much time do you spend on coursework outside of classes?
I would say that's so I guess just for structure, there's 3 classes that you're taking every semester. So your first year, you're always in workshop and you're in your craft class, and then you have your literature classes your first semester or first year, and then thesis hours for your second year. But I would say, to me, I would say there's maybe like 3-ish hours, like in addition to,
You're slightly frozen. If that's if one can be slightly frozen. So Andrew, why don't you answer the question while Ray is becoming unfrozen?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just it's very open-ended. For me, I spend, I would say, to put an actual hour amount, maybe 12 to 15. That might be on the low end some weeks, the high end on others. Most of my weekends, I would say, are devoted to Hunter. I work a full-time job. And so when it comes to reading my fellow students' work, to working on my own work, to doing my, tasks for my lit class, and also for our craft class, it's, I think some people can probably get all that done pretty quickly. For me, it takes a while to really process. So I would say most of my Saturday and Sunday are spent fully doing Hunter, and then throughout the week during the evenings as well. That's probably sounds more daunting than it is. It's it's a lot of that's much more enjoyable than it sounds.
Well, Ray was interrupted while saying that he works 2 hours a week. So
So we got both ends. We got both ends covered.
per class, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
2-3 hours a week. No. But I think the point I wanted to make was that you really get what you put into the courses. So I think, like, if the expectation is just try to do the bare minimum, you can't. I'm not trying to say I'm doing the bare minimum, but I think, like, no one is gonna be on your case about, like, having to complete every single reading, like, to the fullest extent, and, like, be an expert on the readings. But I think if at the end of the day, it's about how much you want to put into it, and what you're getting out of it as well. And I would say it's like I spend a lot more time, like, reading and writing outside of the required coursework, and to me that's just as important as, like, what I'm required to do. So, but I would say, I think compared to what I've heard about other programs, their requirements to me don't seem to get in the way of like doing the reading and writing that I want to do as well for my work.
Thank you. Mike, any other things coming through?
Yeah, here's another one. I know on the fiction website, it says submitting over 25 pages won't help your application. Is this also true for submitting under 20 pages, such as a single 17 to 19 page short story? I happen to remember, if I may, Ayana's fantastic answer to this question last year.
Sure. Ayana,
but you will say it much better than I could ever say it.
Of course, I have no idea what the answer to what that answer was last year, but hopefully I'm consistent with my own brain. So I would say that, so I would say two things. First is that maybe more than a single thing is better, right? Because we want a little bit of a range, just to kind of be like what, just to sort of see a little bit what, like 2 stories is a great thing, or 2 stories in a novel excerpt or something. But the thing that is very, very important, and this is maybe what I said last year, and I will always say it forever, is that one is not helped by submitting 20 good pages and 50 filler pages. Like that is just, like the idea is always to submit your best work, not a lot of work. So it is absolutely quality over quantity, which is what it means why it won't help you to submit, a whole bunch of extra pages. In fact, quite the opposite sometimes happens, right? Like someone will submit a couple of things that are fantastic and then they get kind of nervous, like, oh, this isn't enough pages. And so then they sort of start putting more stuff in and they end up sort of ruining their application because the rest of the stuff is sort of not so great stuff. So it's quality over quantity, best, not most.
I second that. So yeah, Mike, other.
Yeah, that is exactly what I remember, by the way. Okay, so there are people asking, I'm curious about the experiences of students who are not coming straight out of school, or who have been in writing or have not been in writing communities, who have been sort of far away from the writing experience and are moving in this direction. What are those experiences like?
Elisa, I don't want to suggest that Elisa's far from writing experiences, but you've been in other worlds. So do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So I graduated from undergrad in like 2017, so I've been out of school for a while. And since I have a family and children, and I work in like a completely unrelated field. I work in graphic design and progressive politics. So it's definitely been, it's exciting because this is something I'm very passionate about. But there's definitely been a learning curve, I think, like trying to kind of catch up on like the literary world, like that I haven't really visited since undergrad. But I mean, I can't, I mean, I kind of cheated because I've been taking workshops on my own since I graduated. So yeah, I don't know. It's an exhilarating experience to be re-immersed in that. And I think it'll take a bit for students who are coming into the program who don't have that background as consistently. But I mean, it's a constant learning process being a writer anyway, I feel. So it's nothing that I don't think anyone can't handle. And if it's something you're passionate enough about, I think it'll be really easy to re-immerse yourself in.
I have sirens, so I'm just going to briefly say Mike next. There's another.
Yes. Okay. So there's some questions about age. Does age play into admissions at all? Accepting students who are a little bit older as opposed to right out of undergrad, and also students who are quote substantially older unquote. Does that affect anything?
I mean, simple answer is basically no. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to scan across here to figure out if we have anybody who's straight out of undergrad. I'm not sure we do right now. We might, but I certainly people who've been out in the world and been doing things and writing about experience that has been kind of garnered in the course of being out in the world is all to the advantage. And I think we've had people, I mean, I've only been the director for 3 years, but, or 2.5, but there is no prejudice against a student of any particular age. I mean, I think the question is, for any person, when we read a manuscript, is the writing lively and exciting, and is the person sort of pressing on something? And then does it seem like there's room for us to be helpful in some way, right? I mean, it's an odd thing that sometimes you can read something and it's already so formed in one way or another that the idea of someone being in a workshop around it seems less tractable. But I don't think that's a question of age. I mean, that can be someone who's 23 with a manuscript like that. So the short answer is no. There's no age limit or minimum or maximum. I mean, I don't think we could admit you if you're underage, but
Yeah, one other brief thing on that subject. I felt a little bit older when I entered the program. I was 42. I expected to definitely be the oldest person in my class, and it turned out that there was a fellow student who was 62. So that was my experience in my class. Here's another question. What have your experiences been being exposed to your peers' work in workshop classes? Did it invigorate you, surprise you, terrify you, etc.?
Victoria, I think we've come all the way back around to you. So how terrified were you by your fellow students' work?
I love the prompts of the things that we could feel terrified. I think workshop is like, it helps you so much to read other people's work and take it apart, and then you can go back to your own work and learn how to take it apart. And I feel like it kind of goes back to what some people have said of like, what you put into it is what you get out of it. And there's a way to just like read somebody's story 1 or 2 times and then show up for workshop and be able to talk. And then there's a way to like really like try to figure out what they're trying to say and like get into it and figure out what sentences are working and what aren't. And all of that is like, the more you like think about it, and the more you'll be able to like do that for your own work and do that for like other people, which hopefully we all will keep reading each other's work, as Adam said, on into the future. And do you want to be like a good reader for other people's work? Like, yeah, absolutely. So I don't think that I felt terrified. I think that they're like, everyone's work in our cohort is pretty different, not like crazy different, but I feel like everyone has their thing, and it's been really fun to see people like grow as the writers that like they feel like the same writer that entered the program, but they like have changed a little, or they've grown in a certain area, or they're trying out a new theme, and we can kind of watch that happen. And it's really fun that like everybody's not trying to write the same kind of book or a short story collection or a novel. We have a pretty broad spread, I feel like, over the 12 of us, which keeps it interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question just for people's experience. So does anybody else want to jump in on that? I'll call on someone if they don't, but anybody want to just jump in on their experience of workshop?
I can go, Adam. I know you were. Yes. I love workshop. I think that one of my favorite things is the fact that there are other programs out there that you are not in a cohort. And like last semester, I took a class at City for my literature. So I took a class City College, and I was with their MFA program, and it was great. They were awesome, but they all love that Hunter has a cohort and they have the same people reading your work for, the whole 2 years. So it's great that I've been working on a novel for the last year and a half, and I've had the same eyes on them, and now I have first years who have eyes on it. But it's great that I have a cohort of people that have read my story and just grown with my story and helped me out with this exact piece that I'm reading. And they know who my characters are, and they know pretty much the little parts of it. So I'm really enjoying it.
And I just read a bunch of it and I'm psyched about it. So there's also that second year thesis. So we get to see the stuff as it accumulates as well as faculty. Any other things on the board?
Some people have asked about the Hunter community. Do people get together outside of class? What that part of the experience of the Hunter MFA is?
So I'm going to ask Silas that question. Does Silas have? Okay.
Hi, sorry. Yes. Cutting out my fellow Hunter classmate with that. Yeah, I have an expansive and positive experience socially at Hunter. I think what Ayana said at the beginning is spot on. I feel like we have cohered quickly and well, and I like really actually miss and stay in touch quite assiduously with the second years from last year, and I miss them every day, and also I love the first years. Yeah, I don't know, it's nice. I mean, we all have like separate lives in New York, which I think is kind of nice, and like is a good part of being in the city, is like no one's life is too reliant on, or it feels to me as if no one's life is too reliant on the program, but we all kind of like overlap in a really nice way, and I feel like I know people well, and I spend quite a bit of time with folks, which I love and I appreciate, and not always talking about writing, but often doing so, which is nice if you have like friends in other parts of your life who don't actually want to talk to you about that. It's like nice to have friends who do. Ray might also have something to add. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I think just in the grand spectrum of programs, I think there's some programs in which maybe you're like isolated in a small college town, that's like your entire community. And I think there's some, maybe you're in a large cohort and you don't even know like who's in your cohort. And I would say like Hunter kind of falls maybe more, in the middle of that spectrum, where I think because we're in New York, everyone has their own lives. A lot of people have lived in New York before, and I think okay. Oh, I thought I was frozen. Everyone was just very still. Have their own lives going on, and but at the same time, we always will have two classes together. We'll have workshop and have craft class, and oftentimes, like people hang out after class, and I think because we're in workshop together and we always read each other's work, like we do get to know each other pretty intimately, both as writers and beyond that as well. So I think, yeah. It's been a positive experience for me as well.
Good. So we're pretty much at the end of the hour. Maybe we can do one more question, Mike, or if there's a theme amongst several, I don't know.
Sure. Actually, if I can throw one more thing in about the social thing. Another thing is that we have in the fall and the spring, we have a student reading at KGB. And that was a really amazing experience, I think, for all of us, students, faculty, alumni. Like the room was absolutely packed, like tight standing room, which is just a reflection of the broader community, like the people who are actively students now, and just the way that the program has kept people together over years. Here's another question. How does people psych themselves up to apply to such a competitive program?
Aida, how did you psych yourself up to apply to Hunter?
I think I just decided it was something that I had to do. I think if you know that you want a degree, if you know that you want to pursue your writing, then you can't really let like the prestige of a school decide whether you're going to apply or not. You just need to make that decision for yourself and decide and stick to it.
Good advice. I'll say from my own experience many moons ago, that I got rejected from all the MFA programs I applied to. And then I applied again. And you know, I think there are people who've applied to Hunter more than once and then gotten in. So I think Ivy is exactly right that you just have to, it's like a lot of things in writing. Rejection is part of the story, right? You're gonna write and send it off and it's gonna be rejected, and graduate school, you know, and sometimes accepted, and graduate school is sort of the same thing. You don't think about grad school, you only need to find one place that is a good match. But there's in no way should anybody be intimidated by the numbers of the, you know, it's you apply where you want to go. And maybe that is a good note to end on, because this is all, after all, about applications. So I hope that for all those of you who attended, that it's been at least somewhat useful. I thank all the students for taking time out of their week to answer these questions, and Ayana and Roxana for being here. This will be available on the website. Not that if you've been here already, you don't have to watch it again, but it will be there. And Mike, I feel always a little bad about saying this, but because he answers so many questions from so many people, but Mike Rizzo is a font of information about all aspects of what we talked about. And you can contact him to ask follow-ups. And so, yeah, we look forward to reading your work and visiting with you at some point in the spring. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a good evening. All right. Bye.